until recently, Trump has very much sided with the Russians and the Moscow point of view, but he has seemed to change a little bit in recent weeks, and maybe his anger at Putin continuing to attack civilian targets, other war crime, will galvanize him to get a just deal for Ukraine.
Now, the Russian President Vladimir Putin is heading to a summit in the United States with Donald Trump, but it is important to remember that he has been indicted by the International Criminal Court. Now, the US is not a signatory of the court, but as he travels around the world, President Putin is at risk of arrest over charges that thousands of children from Ukraine are to be sold to Russia. Hamish de Bretton Gordon is a former British Army colonel and has written in The Telegraph about the decision of the US to host President Putin in Alaska, and he joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. You believe that President Putin should be arrested?
Well, yes, absolutely. And you've articulated exactly why he should be arrested. He is he's indicted for war crimes at the International Criminal Court for stealing thousands of children from Ukraine and selling them to childless couples in Russia. And that is the one that he's indicted for. But there are many others as well. So, yeah, he should be arrested. However, this is realpolitik. I'm sure the reason that Alaska has been chosen is it's very close to Russia. So presumably any plane that Putin's in will not have to travel very far out of Russian airspace and be, potentially attacked in some sort of form. And Alaska, part of the US, is not a signatory to the International Criminal Court. So Trump does not have to arrest him. Yeah, he should be arrested, absolutely. And there are a whole host of other war crimes that he is responsible for. But again, that is not the aim, I think, of the meeting. It's to try and find a peace deal for Ukraine, a just peace deal, but without the Ukrainians and without the Europeans. It seems strange that they've chosen a place about as far away from Ukraine as you can get. So, psychologically, I don't think it seems like the right place. And I don't think there's a lot of confidence that a just deal is going to be done, which Ukraine will be able to accept.
Do you think Donald Trump is making a mistake in having this one-on-one meeting with President Putin without President Zelensky there, and also without European representation, who have also been part of the war effort to help protect Ukraine?
Well, again, this is realpolitik. Maybe this is a start, but the sort of build up to it has been pretty shocking and disorganized. Steve Witkoff, his envoy, who went to Russia to sort of do the groundwork for this meeting, came back with the wrong impression. He didn't even have an interpreter, and he thought the Russians were making a lot of concessions, and they were doing absolutely the opposite. And, I think, Trump wants to make a deal, and a deal on Trump's terms might not be acceptable for the Ukrainians and for us sort of here in Europe. And Putin hitherto has shown absolutely no signs of peace. He still thinks he can achieve his aims of total subjugation of Ukraine. But one really fears that if Trump doesn't get his peace or doesn't get the Europeans and the Ukrainians to agree on it, then Trump will withdraw, and then us in Europe are really going to have to step up. But not having Zelensky there, not having the Ukrainians there, I mean, it seems to me bonkers. These are the people who have been wronged and attacked. So just talking to the enemy, as it were, seems a very strange way to try and build a peace deal.
Do you think the only way to even get that ceasefire that everyone is hoping for is for these so-called land swaps? And do you think that is realistic? Do you think, you keep mentioning realpolitik, isn't that part of realpolitik, that President Zelensky, even though he put out a statement saying that we will not reward the aggressor with any of our lands, but the reality is he might have to if he really wants to put an end to this war?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think you're right. And, a lot of us are quoting the Budapest Memorandum back in the 90s when the UK, Russia and the US guaranteed the security of the Ukrainian borders if they gave up their nuclear weapons, which they did do. But the very fact is that it is likely that to get any traction, the Ukrainians are going to have to give up some of the land that they've lost since 2014. And there are suggestions that maybe Zelensky is coming round to that, but it'll be way short of what Putin's asking for. He wants the four oblasts, which he has taken some of them, and Crimea to be recognised as Russian Federation land. And there may well be a bit of horse trading and a bit of land that the Ukrainians are prepared to give up, but I don't think nowhere near what Putin is asking for. And of course, he hasn't changed his negotiating position for the last year or so, and doesn't seem likely to. So, yeah, there might be a bit of trading of land, but I can't see that it will satisfy both sides. So I think Trump has got to come up with something else. And I suppose the final bit on this, until recently, Trump has very much sided with the Russians and the Moscow point of view. But he has seemed to change a little bit in recent weeks, and maybe his anger at Putin continuing to attack civilian targets, other war crime, will galvanize him to get a just deal for Ukraine. But I don't think it's going to happen this Friday. And maybe this is the start of the process. But let's hope they make some ground, at least, so that we can have a hope there might be a just peace on the horizon somewhere.
Colonel, just briefly, if I may, should the deal that comes back on Friday, if indeed there is a deal that comes back on Friday, be completely unacceptable to Ukraine and Europe, but also sees the US walk away and wash their hands of the whole matter? We heard language from the Vice President similar to that the US taxpayer doesn't want to see their tax dollars go to Ukraine any longer. Can Europe take on the role of protecting Ukraine alone without the assistance of the US?
Well, I think it's going to have to. I don't think Europe doesn't sound like it's about to capitulate and throw Ukraine to the Russians. So I think we're going to have to step up. I think militarily, yeah, we have the capability. We have the military power, certainly. If the US withdraws its intelligence support to European NATO countries, then that will be a significant issue. But I'm not sure they will. The one thing that this country, the UK, does do and is very important to the US is our own intelligence capabilities. And I don't think the US would want to lose those. But yeah, militarily, I think we're going to have to do it in Europe. I think we probably can. But we would certainly still need that US intelligence to help us do it.
Colonel, thank you for your time. Former British Army Colonel Hamish de Bretton